Duke freshman Cameron Boozer is a firm contender to go number 1 in the 2026 NBA draft, and he should never fall out of the top 3. This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break it down. Cam Boozer is a do-it-all front-court juggernaut who operates with otherworldly efficiency while making very few mistakes and crushing just about every advanced stat. At 6'9" with a 7-foot wingspan, he has an extensive track record of winning basketball at every level. Boozer is also one of the youngest players in the draft, only turning 19 in July. I'm not sure I've ever seen a player understand his limitations and maximize his strengths as wisely as Boozer. He dominates the paint with his strength, controls the glass on both ends, and makes others better with his on-ball gravity and non-stop production. Overall, Boozer has very few flaws, and he should be considered an incredibly safe prospect to have a long, fruitful career as a multi-time All-Star. My remaining questions are largely about Boozer's advantage creation on offense and then his defensive production for a big. Boozer is a smart, crafty playmaker with real soft touch, but I do think that he can be slightly one-dimensional, wanting to bury his shoulder into the defender to score, pass, or get fouled. When that gets taken away, I'm unsure about his counters still. Then, I consider Boozer's flexibility, ground coverage, and twitch to be below Darren Peterson and AJ Dybantsa's. This can show up on both ends with Boozer's relatively stiff, upright wiggle and his average vertical pop. Defensively, Boozer is very smart, and again, he doesn't make mistakes. His robust frame is tough to move, and he has quick, active hands to counteract his lack of bounce. Still, Boozer's defensive radius is limited by some of his average physical tools. So far, I haven't been overly impressed by his rim protection. I'll get into that and much more. In the NBA, all of this is relative to how great of a prospect the Duke freshman is. Like I said, he could very well go number 1. But what if Boozer has to be a 4 on defense who needs a versatile 5 on that end? And then he's the one guarded by NBA 5s, and he has more struggles when he meets greater size and length and more equivalent strength. Now, let's dive into his game, but before that, make sure to like, hype, comment, and subscribe to the channel and the Floor and Ceiling Substack. Cam Boozer's elite functional strength allows him to bully defenders in the post and out of face-ups. The Duke forward is super physical, quick and assertive when he faces up, always playing out of 2 dribbles. The same goes for Boozer's post-ups, generally speaking, but in the NBA, I do think that he's more likely to get face-ups. He likes to spin, and even though he's not very flexible or twitchy, he understands his limitations and works around them to get to his spots. Then, Boozer uses the glass smartly on his finishes, and he's capable with both hands. At 250 pounds, that's NBA center weight, and he'll be a mismatch against most 4s, and especially 3s, even if he's not that tall. Regardless, Boozer plays with contact, particularly using his elbows, shoulders, and off arm to create space or force the foul. Going forward, he'll have to be mindful with how he kind of juts out his elbows though, as he probably does get away with some offensive fouls. Boozer is also looking increasingly comfortable and dangerous from 3. He's shooting around 37% while taking more than 8 threes per 100 possessions. Already this season, we've seen him pull up out of ball screens, take movement corner 3s that look pretty good, and overall, he's fired his catch and shoots with zero hesitation. Boozer has had a consistently upward trajectory as a 3-point shooter since establishing himself as a high school freshman, and once he gets into the NBA, I expect that he'll only become a better shooter. In turn, that means he'll use that part of his game even more, which then opens up how Boozer attacks closeouts. This part of his game is also highly enticing, Again, BOOZER does quick work out of 2 or 3 dribbles, and I'm going to be tracking exactly how malleable and explosive he is in these situations. BOOZER's dominance extends to how he controls the glass on both ends. His rebounding numbers on either side of the ball are very strong, and they reflect his impact on the floor. BOOZER knows how to use his massive frame, strength advantage, and magnet hands to corral rebounds. Even when he misses at the basket, he can get his own offensive rebound and go back up. What I love is that BOOZER extends possessions for his team with his motor and physicality on the glass. In today's NBA, that's highly valuable. And then, as I'm about to get into, his defensive rebounding can segue immediately into awesome outlet passes. I consider the Duke prospect to be an elite positional playmaker, as he rarely makes bad decisions as a passer. So far, he's averaged 3.8 assists to 1.3 turnovers. Thinking about the league, I really like BOOZER as a short roller. This bodes well for him if he's a 4 who has to play with a 5, but either way, he'll be able to activate cutters or 3-point shooters in those situations. BOOZER is very composed, dealing with double teams or even more defenders. The question is how often he'll get these doubles in the NBA. I think they'll come a bit less, which is why I'm curious to see what will happen if teams guard BOOZER with 7-foot bigs. As a playmaker, he can see over the top of defenses, he's accurate with his skip passes from the block, but also with his outlets and hit-aheads. If BOOZER is paired with another big, his high-low reads are reliable, and overall, I think that you can really trust him with the ball in his hands. Looking towards the future, I expect BOOZER to play plenty of possessions as the quote-unquote point guard throughout his career. Defensively, BOOZER has very few flaws, again, but I think this side of the ball is a highly important aspect of his game, of course. For his strengths, here I'll highlight his hands and how you can trust him in space. Of course, the strength that I've been highlighting comes into play as well. BOOZER moves his feet and he keeps ball handlers in front. He hasn't been tested too much, but whenever he's been switched onto guards, he's held up fine. Drivers can't move him physically, and he's relatively big, so they really need to work pretty hard to take him on. A 3.2 steal percentage is solid, especially if he's going to spend minutes at the 4 and perhaps even the 3. Diving into BOOZER's improvement points, honestly, there aren't too many. He's an elite prospect. My main concern right now is how he does not, and historically has not, added true rim protection. In 10 games, BOOZER has 10 blocks. As opposed to his steal metrics, a 3.8 block percentage is lackluster if he is to play as a big. Against top 50 quality competition, that figure drops to a 1.2 block percentage. For me, BOOZER's lack of twitch and lift shows up around the rim and even in his contests. He's smart when he helps, but he has to be positioned really well to get the block, or he might not get there. BOOZER is not going to face any issues down low given his strength, but I do wonder how much he'll ultimately bother bigs who can just offset that by shooting over him. Thinking about the rest of the season, it would be hard for me not to elevate BOOZER to the number 1 spot on my board if he's able to offer a better pitch on what he can do as a defender that anchors a defense, but I haven't seen that throughout his career. All of this ties into my questions about BOOZER's defensive frontcourt versatility. Really, it's about how much he can play the 5. I have no doubts that he'll get minutes there, but is that going to be the best look for him or his team on defense? He'll definitely hold down the paint with his rebounding, but in my opinion, BOOZER needs someone to add some rim protection as well. Going back to the offensive end, I've talked about this before, but I still have some questions about BOOZER's average twitch and bend for a primary option. I just think that he can be too reliant on bully ball, and we've seen this come up on tape, even though you could say that his problem solving and decision making have already really improved. Still, what happens when BOOZER cannot create the initial advantage if thrusting his shoulder into the defender doesn't work? What I'm wondering about is how or if this will be amplified against bigger defenders in the NBA. If teams feel like they can put their 5 on BOOZER, and then his accompanying 5 isn't a significant enough offensive threat to matter, I believe that could be problematic. And finally, just wrapping up, I'm curious about BOOZER's shooting versatility. He's shown a lack of mid-range scoring, but I'm not sure that he even needs it. Then, with his shot, BOOZER doesn't have a super quick release, and he does need time to load into it. Lastly, we're dealing with a small sample size, but it's worth noting that there is a difference between his unguarded and his guarded catch and shoot threes.